Hi guys, Jesse Henley here from The Gamer.
It is
Um,
he.
Hi.
Hi. What I wanted to start with is Leslie, you've spoken before about drawing inspirations from different eras of Star Wars for the Acolyte. I just wanted to ask about, from your perspective, why you felt that was important in terms of telling the story, and then from Manny's perspective, what kind of inspiration you were able to draw from a story that spans so many types of Star Wars stories.
Well, I just wanted to get in as much Star Wars as I could, if that makes sense. I mean, I wanted to shoot my shot. I mean, sometimes when I watch the show, I'm like, is it just a bunch of fan fiction? Do you know what I mean? Like, because there's so many things that I wanted to pack in there. I wanted the practical sets and the puppeteering of the original trilogy. I wanted to have, the Jedi at their height, the way that the prequels are. I wanted to give a fresh new take on it, which the sequels do. I just wanted sort of all of it. Oh, and then Clone Wars, even having a Coven of Witches comes from Clone Wars. Having a Jedi Wookiee comes from Clone Wars. So it was drawing from everything because as a fan, I got the opportunity. So I'm just gonna pack it full of stuff.
Yeah, and I mean, coming from the perspective as an actor and having, like Leslie said, all these practical, tangible things around you, when you first step in, I mean, it's such a big world, and a lot of the new previous shows were in the volume and used CGI, but just having these just real tangible things, triggering all of your senses, just really helps you ground the character, and you really don't have to use your imagination at all because it's all really taken care of by the puppeteers and the creatures and the sets and the background. Yeah, it's just an incredibly helpful thing. We were super fortunate to be able to do that.
Yeah, and it's interesting that you mentioned it feeling a little bit like fan fiction because when I watched the show, I almost felt the opposite. There's a lot of Star Wars projects recently that have relied on cameos or they've pulled old characters
Mm,
back out, and I feel like the Acolyte is it feels a lot more original. It is a lot more original. A
Oh,
lot of these
good.
characters are
yeah.
new to the show. So it's interesting that that's kind of the clash of approaches. I guess how do you think the fans will approach that? Because I think a lot of fans do love the cameos, but I think a lot of fans really want something like the Acolyte that's fresh.
I have no idea. I have to say I'm totally terrified, but I also have no idea. I mean, my wife just keeps saying like there are going to be people that like it. There are going to be people who hate it. There are going to be people who love it. There are going to be people who despise it. There's just no way around it. The fans feel a particular ownership over Star Wars. That's how I feel as well. I have my own reaction to Star Wars media, so I think what I would say, though, is that as this is a fresh entry point, one thing that I'll say about the show is I think it affords the opportunity for people who do not know Star Wars and are not super familiar with the lore and, like you said, cameos from the Skywalker saga, or Clone Wars, or the Empire versus Rebellion. Like, they don't need to know anything to watch it. So hopefully it'll be fans, but it'll also be newcomers and people that don't know the franchise as well as the fans do.
And to just touch on that, like I feel like with again these previous Star Wars series, you have these heroes like Ahsoka and Sabine Wren, and you have already this established reputation that the audiences and the fans already know that these characters are going to be good and they have like these values already. But what Leslie is able to do with these characters, she's able to like build these new characters, and they become fan favorites or they become fan enemies. They're the complete opposite. But you don't know like where they're gonna end up at the end of the show, and just it
That's so
allows for
true.
something so much more interesting as opposed to, oh, you know that Ahsoka's gonna be the hero. You know that she's gonna do the right thing.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, like I said, that was definitely my perspective when I watched it. And I think I've just got time for one more question. So, what a lot of people, not just in these sets of interviews, but when I've worked interviewing people from previous Star Wars things, a lot of them mention watching it as a child, that kind of relationship that they've always had with the franchise. And one of the big themes in the Acolyte is obviously is that connection to your childhood, to parentage, to fatherhood, to kind of found families. Is that something that for both of you, from a different perspective, how you would approach this, have tapped into that idea of Star Wars is inherently linked to childhood for millions of people, and this is a story that is about childhood in a way.
Oh, 100%. I would totally agree with that. And thank you. I'm glad that you are articulating that. It's a great question. I don't want to get too personal, but the sister-sister dynamic is absolutely something I experience in my life. I have a sister that is on the opposite end of the spectrum, I would say, in terms of her belief system. And there is a world where I understand that she thinks she's right and I think I'm right. And in a way, because that's who we are, like robbing someone of that would be a really, it feels unlikely. It feels unlikely that your whole belief system is going to change because one person doesn't like you. So, and then the other thing, again, I this might be too personal, but it started as a story about two sisters because of my experience with that. And then my father got very sick when I started working on physical production and starting, writing the production scripts. And so it really went from a sister-sister story to a father-daughter story with Soul and Osha. It just sort of naturally morphed into that becoming the main dynamic.
Yeah,
I took up all the time.
No,
It turned into a therapy
session,
session.
yes. Which we love.
Which
love a
we're
good
okay
therapy
with.
session, yes.
I think that's all I have time for. Thank you so much. There were some excellent answers, and best luck with everything. I hope more people love it than despise it.
They will.
Yes, fingers
I'm sure
crossed.
they will.
Thank you.
Thank you.